The pandemic and its economic fallout have led to widespread hardship, but also new kinds of resiliency. For a time, that meant efforts by local public agencies and grassroots organizations combined with emergency help from Washington. But with more uncertainty about federal aid in the future, there's more concern among agencies providing relief, including Project Bread. To bring us up to date on the efforts and the needs is its president, Erin McAleer. Thanks very much for being with us, Erin.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.
Erin, I know things are maybe trending more better than worse at the moment, but what about federal aid? Because it's not what it was a few months ago, and what about the future? Well, what are you worried about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried that this crisis, we're still in this crisis, the economic fallout of this crisis. And we are seeing our number of people calling our Project Bread's food source hotline seeking assistance is still incredibly high. And the challenge that we're facing is that, unemployment benefits ran out the last week in July, and no food assistance has been included in any of the proposals forward by the U.S. Senate, by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. So it's really concerning. And the scale of this crisis demands a government response. This is not a crisis that the generosity of individuals can address, unfortunately.
Speaking of scale, your metric is food insecurity. How has that increased during the crisis?
Yeah, it's almost double. The most recent data we have is from the last week of July, and it was 16.6% of households were food insecure in Massachusetts and 21% of households with children. It's also important to note that that number doubles for Black and Latinx families. So this crisis is hurting certain populations even more disproportionately.
Speaking of the populations being hurt, I know there's been a lot of discussion about what's been experienced by the Latinx population in Massachusetts, and we have a lot of that in East Boston, especially here. But you started looking at this even before the pandemic. What did you see?
We did. Before the pandemic, we did a research project with the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center and Children's Health Watch, working with 400 families and looking at food insecurity. And, we found a lot of things. I think one really startling statistic was that the Latinx population never recovered from the 2008 economic fallout. They were still in the recovery when this COVID crisis hit. That's one finding. Another finding is insecurity around housing and childcare and wages just not keeping pace with affordability. So this population was already negatively and disproportionately impacted by economic implications here in Massachusetts, and the COVID-19 crisis has just only exacerbated that.
Of course, another factor here is access to food relief, what we now call the SNAP benefits. It sounds like the name for something easy to do, but how easy is it actually?
To apply for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, it can be challenging. That's why we exist. That's why Project Bread's Food Source Hotline is out there. We're trying to raise awareness. We're doing an awareness campaign just to make people know about the program in the first place, and it's the first place they turn. And then we have counselors that will help individuals walk them through the application, find out if they're do a pre-screen. So for individuals, especially undocumented immigrants who want to just find out whether they'd be eligible before going to the government agency, we will work with them on that and then help them actually apply. So it can be challenging. We're looking at a lot of different factors. That's why we exist. And there's also SNAP outreach partners throughout the state of Massachusetts to help individuals apply. We really want to encourage people, but this should be their first stop. If you're struggling to put food on the table, let's first find out if you're eligible for SNAP, because this program right now, you're able to get the maximum benefit. So a family of four, that's $646 a month. And it also makes you automatically eligible for other programs, whether it's school meals or pandemic EBT or WIC. So it's the best first stop to find out if you're eligible for SNAP.
I think anybody who takes advantage of a government program, and I don't exclude myself here, knows what it's like to experience contact with an officious person who makes you feel like you're a little bit smaller than they are. For a lot of the immigrants here, who on top of that might be struggling with language, what's it like for them?
Yeah, it is. It's really challenging, and we can't discount what's going on right now. The rhetoric coming out of Washington D.C. The Trump administration put forward a proposal called the public charge, which we have been opposed to because it basically said if anyone ever relied on any sort of benefits, then it will impair their immigration status going forward. There's a lot of families with young kids who are going hungry because they're just scared. And this is America. We have enough food to feed everyone. Let's make sure that we can feed everyone, because it's absolutely possible.
Of course, the other thing going on here is ways that you think the program should be changed, either in terms of benefits or just process. What would you like to see done differently?
Yeah, one silver lining of this crisis is we've broken down a lot of barriers to these programs. There's less paperwork right now. There's not a requirement to have in-person interviews, as an example. So we would want to keep those barriers down. There's no reason to put them back up. We should be making access food as easy as possible, rather than constantly putting up so many barriers to make people be able to afford it and to access it.
I want to ask you about some other barriers you've been working on for quite a while to reduce, and that is the meals in schools. I know this goes back to a time when nobody imagined a pandemic was around the corner, but there was a barrier to eating meals in the school, sometimes because the school bus was late. So what did you end up doing about that?
Yeah, well, so the good news is that legislation called Breakfast After the Bell, which we had been pushing pre-COVID, was finally passed by the legislature and signed by Governor Baker. So starting in the school year 21-22, and hopefully, we have a vaccine and everyone's back in school then, kids will be able to access breakfast as part of the school day. But that is still, a little ways off. Right now, what we have been doing is right now, meal sites across Massachusetts are providing school meals. School meals can provide 50% of a child's daily calories, so it's critical that they continue. So we've got partners throughout the state, schools, YMCAs, housing authorities that are providing school meals to kids and doing it in innovative ways, doing deliveries with school buses or doing drive-through models. And that is something that we've been pushing since March. They were set up in March, and we recently, the federal government approved an extension to do it to the end of December as well, which was a victory. They approved it a little bit late for us to operationalize it and maximize it in the way that we would have liked, but it is a victory that they approved it. And we're asking that they actually extend it to the end of the school year, just for planning purposes.
I also have to ask you about the scale of things in terms of needs that you met, because getting food to people, it's a lot more complicated now with the pandemic. So how did you make that work?
Yeah, with the schools, it was a lot of just ingenuity from school nutrition directors, who deserve a huge shout out, that really had to come up with new models of delivering meals safely for kids, but they were committed. But I will also say that a big reason we focus on SNAP is because it puts money in people's pockets and they can purchase food in the way that's most safe for them. It allows them to go to the grocery store, it allows them to get meal deliveries. So we feel really strongly that SNAP and giving people the purchasing power to buy the food they want to buy, and that they can buy in the safest way possible, is the most effective method right now for addressing this hunger crisis.
Now, where there are some people in Washington right now who see this as a moral hazard of dependency, you also see a bigger SNAP program here as a stimulus of some sort. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, it puts money back into the local economy. For every dollar in SNAP, I think it's $1.70 that goes back into the local economy. People go to their grocery store, buy food, that helps pay for the wages of the grocery store workers. They use it at farmers markets throughout the summer because of the Healthy Incentives Program. And a lot of those farmers markets continue. There's a lot of winter markets as well, at bodegas in neighborhoods. So a lot of these communities that are hardest hit, it has that added benefit that it helps people purchase food, but it also provides economic stimulation.
Well, finally, we should mention that you do have a lot of more information on your website, and you also have a hotline for people who need help. So can you tell us about how to reach those?
The Project Bread Food Source hotline is 1-800-645-8333. We're open 6 days a week. It's confidential, 180 languages. So if anyone is seeking food assistance, give us a call. And if you're looking to support our work, projectbread.org is where you can go as well.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Chris, as always. Be well.
Good to see you again. Erin McAleer from Project Bread. We'll have more news in just a moment.